Jimmy, it's a rainy weekend here, but I think the week-wise it has been pretty hot when it comes to the AI. There's a lot of announcements, etc. So I think we're looking forward to talk about several announcements that came out, for example, from OpenAI, from the Dev Day. New models and the agent kit, and the APIs, as well as the chats in the actually apps in the chat. That was very exciting to see.
Yeah, there was a lot of news, a lot of launches, just a lot of information put out this past week. It seemed like every time I turned around, there was, oh my God, there's something new. Let me go try it out. So yeah, the things you just mentioned are one of them. Google had a lot of announcements coming out this week as well. Everything from computer use to an enterprise offering is probably the best way I could say it for what they're putting out. So yeah, this week was definitely a lot of info, and we hope to give you we'll call it the top news for the week, things you can really sink your teeth into. That being said, there's so much. I know, like when we were preparing for this, we're like, all right, which piece do we keep in? Which do we keep out? So we'll probably shift a couple of things into next episode as well, since there was just so much this week.
Absolutely. So let's get started. Stay tuned for a quick introduction.
Sounds good.
Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jaime Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Okay, so Jimmy, let's get started with a couple of news items first. There was actually news about a new AI actor being created by a studio called Particle 6. And, that created quite a bit of an outrage from the Hollywood stars and celebrities, as expected. This AI actor is named as Tilly Norwood, and it was created by Dutch actor and comedian Eline van der Velden, who said she wanted Norwood to become the next Scarlett Johansson. And Norwood is not an actor. It's a character generated by a computer program that was trained on the work of, professional performers. That's what the Screen Actors, the SAG-AFTRA union said in a statement. It has no life experiences to draw from, no emotion. And from what we have seen, the audiences are not interested in watching computer-generated content untethered from the human experience. So that's what the union position was, that, hey, this is, they dismissed it, but not just as a something, I would say, like not worthy, but more like an outrage that, okay, it builds on the work of all the human performers. It doesn't give the credit to that. So like it was a bit of a, I would say, you can see that within the industry a tussle being played out right now, and that's what I've also seen, Jamie, that when you talk with anybody who works in this industry, and I was talking with someone who is in the modeling and talent, and I referred to the AI as a keyword, and that that kind of created a okay kind of a bit I would say a bit hostile reaction, right? Because what you could sense is that I think in this industry, media industry, there is a lot of concern, a lot of insecurity. While there are some who are embracing it, most of the others are very worried, and I think rightfully so. And I'm worried about, as I say, right? I mean, it's the worry is generally not about the technology; it's about the greed of the humans who plan to use the technology in very difficult ways. But that's what this kept the news in the press right now, actually, for a week.
Yeah, and, this, as you mentioned already, this is something where the paid actors, actresses, and the actors guilds are certainly concerned, and rightfully so in some cases. It's their livelihood. I know that some agencies are putting in clauses on, we could take an actor's likeness and or their voice, with their permission. Of course, they get paid and using it, but this is something that's created from scratch. And, would this then just take away, like you said, the next Scarlett Johansson? So this brings in, a different view and a different potential, I don't want to say replacement, but a different threat to the overall actors and actresses in the industry. So I'm not surprised by this. There's some parallels. There was also a musician that was not real, but the person behind it was real. So there's a lot of parallels between that, and that just came out, whatever it was, like last week or 2 weeks ago, for the musician slash vocal artist. So again, when you focal back on like this AI actor Tilly, what does this really mean for the industry? And I think that's the big question, and people are kind of wrestling with it. But it's also that fear factor where they don't know where it's going. They don't know if what impact this is going to have. I think that's the big piece that I take away from this is it's the I almost said an explicitive, but it's the oh type of moment where people are like, wow, this is real now.
That is true. In fact, Jamie, this I just showing on the screen here that actor, what you can see here, right? So this is not real. Looks very real, and here you can see different kind of like um, the pictures of that AI generated an actor in different settings, right? Some of the things that you will find funny if you look at this, you can see the AI hallmark of look at the posters behind this actor, right? All those jumble of text, etc. I think
Yeah.
that's just the AI characteristic of not able to generate those characters, but the character itself is pretty faithfully rendered across the different settings, right? So I think it does look very real. Um, it has not been used, of course, yet, but they are open to it, right? So this company Particle 6 is actually open to creating these kind of characters in different settings. Now, the
Yeah,
other
and I was going to say that, and that's the big thing you touched upon is its consistency of a character. So I've done a little bit in terms of like video generation over the past couple of months. So that's been a hard part for the video generation models because even during a clip, they'll change the consistency, and part of it is prompting and how you work with the model. But the other thing is how intelligent is that model? So models like VO3 and the recently released Sora 2 do a lot better job of keeping consistency between frames that you're building, but it goes way beyond that. It's doing things like the master images that you're starting from, or the things that you're using to create that person or persona or the actor like Tilly. So we've seen advancements in the models, but then there's also better ways of actually prompting. I know we're getting a little off track on this one, but OpenAI recently put out a prompting guide for Sora 2, which is their latest video generation model, helping people do things like scene settings, camera action, but then also consistency of actors. So I think the things that we're seeing here with Tilly are going to be more commonplace because not only are the models getting better, but people are understanding more about how to use those models to keep the consistency of the characters throughout. So that's interesting. I'll give you one other side note as well. Again, like I said, been playing around with some of the video generation. Typically, if you started to use a person's face or even this fictitious part, if you did camera angles and you got away from that person's face in the video, when the camera went back to their face, it would be a totally different person. And that's because it didn't have consistency. The model would actually forget what the person looked like in like the first 2 seconds versus the last 10 seconds, especially if you hid their face in any manner. But today's models, I was playing around with WAN 2.5 and Sora 2. It doesn't do that. It keeps consistency even if you hid faces. So ultimately where this is going is that it's going to make movie production, or I don't want to say movie, it's going to make video generation that much more cleaner because of the advancements in the models to really understand not only physics of the world, but then, hey, this is what this person Tilly looked like in this first second versus, hey, they're reappearing some way in like the 20th second of that video clip. So Anyway, probably more than what you wanted to know right now, but ultimately, I think these actors like Tilly are going to become more and more prevalent and more realistic and more used across the industry, whether or not the actors like it or not. So
It's coming.
it's just a changing way that we do business.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of changing the way that we do business, this is a great segue into Deloitte. So this is I'm going to call it, why did you do that moment? So Deloitte in Australia actually had to pay a partial refund to Australia in the tune of, I think it was $440,000 there. Dollars equate to like 290,000. I forgot the currency exchange. The bottom line, they had to pay money back to the Australian government because they created a report, based upon, hey, we're going to consult and pay Deloitte to do some work for us. Well, it turns out they used artificial intelligence, or at least it looks like they used AI, because there were things that in the report, and I think they were doing this for a review of their departmental IT processes that they had within Australia's welfare system. So the first instance of this is that errors were included in this fabricated report, or at least a quote within the report that cited some federal court judgments, which were totally made up. So this is a classic example of the use of an LLM model to create a report and it hallucinated something. I go back to, that's not the model's fault. It's actually the people that were preparing that report, because they should have done their due diligence to actually check and proofread these things. And this screams to me that maybe it was some junior person, someone's got to sign off it up that partner chain, and that did not happen. So they produced a revised version. This is the funny part. So it was published, and then a researcher in one of the universities in Australia actually got to read the report and noticed that some of the references, the citations in the report, were totally made up as well. So not only did they screw up on the first edition of it, where it cited some non-existent academic research papers and references, but they didn't do all of the proofreading that they were supposed to do in the subsequent citation follow-up. So Deloitte did come out and confirm that some of the footnotes and references were incorrect and agreed to repay the final installment. Basically, hey, we're going to be nice and not charge you for the full thing. And Deloitte did come out and say that they resolved the matter directly with the client, but they did not confirm if it was AI generated. I read between the lines and I'm like, yeah, this was AI generated errors that they just misquoted or didn't use. I think the researcher found over 20 different errors across the paper. So it's definitely a case where they just use some tools and
Can't believe it is still happening. In the last 2 years, we have seen several examples like this, and I can't believe that companies have not put guardrails around checking the work which is being used by, which is being generated by AI.
These are things that, like, if this happened in a university setting where some college kid was putting together a paper, they would be in trouble with the teacher. I have some arguments against that. I mean, they should use AI, but you should proofread your stuff. I mean, that's like step number one. So this is a classic example and case. And what do you take away from this? Read through the stuff that AI is generating, proofread it, and ensure it's correct. I mean, do that. I'm not saying don't use AI, but you got to be responsible in its use and output. So anyway.
True. By the way, a quick trivia there, Jamie, since we were talking about these kind of risks, there is a new research that shows 77% of sensitive data leaks in organizations stem from employees copying data into AI tools, which are often unmanaged accounts. So, AI does increase a lot of surface area for the risk and the frauds and all those kind of things. So organizations need to be really, really careful and putting the guardrails. Do not ignore that and don't rush into it.
Yep. Super important. So we got some rapid fire news coming out.
Yeah. Looks like Google had something done, Jamie. What was that? Some rollout.
So yeah, Google, they had a tool, still do have a tool called Opal, which is a application or a mini application, no code application builder. And that was released maybe a couple months ago, but it's rolling out to 15 more countries, everything from Canada to India to Brazil and Pakistan. They've also added some step-by-step debugging within the visual editor. So it allows for better parallel runs and faster, reliable workflows. So again, this is an application builder that they're rolling out to more locations. So coming to a country near you.
Okay, great. And the Replit company, they're also doing pretty well, and they're used. They basically provide coding platform, engineering platform, which enterprises use, but it is also very popular among the students. For example, my daughter, she has a subscription to that. So my daughters actually use that as well. And they have actually launched something called Agent 3. And it's a breakthrough, as per them, in the autonomous software development. So um, basically, Agent 3 is the first agent on the market as per Replit that can work like a teammate. And it can, like their Agent 1 version, could only work human level tasks autonomously. Okay. It can test and fix its code. It can improve a user's application behind the scenes, and its proprietary testing system is up to 3 times faster and 10 times cheaper compared to the computer use models. So Rapid actually does provide a lot of fine-tuned models that they use actually Claude a lot in their solution, and they essentially are providing this testing uh, solutions as well as part of this agent, which uses, and it's much better than the computer use. So like you can have the form filling or clicking and all those things. Those things can also be actually tested with the agent. So essentially, agent is becoming very mature. It is also one of the leading contender or competition in the coding space against the we have talked about Windsurfer and then the Codex and Anthropic's Cloud Code and all those places.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Yep. So let's get into a little bit of what Google has put out there. And like I said, they've done a lot over this past week. So they released something called Gemini Enterprise. Best way I could kind of paraphrase what Gemini Enterprise is think about it's a competitor to M365 Copilot. So it's been introduced as an upgrade to its AI ecosystem and workplace. So it really is designed to bring intelligent agents, secure data, connectivity into things that you have and use, all within a unified AI environment inside Google Cloud. So their standardized pricing, obviously, this is meant for enterprises, hence the name Google Enterprise. And it's $30 per month per user for the standard and plus editions. And then there's a Gemini business plan, which is available at $21 per user per month, which kind of fits squarely into what Microsoft 360 or M365 is, or M365 Copilot, which is $30 a month as well per user. So the Google Cloud CEO, Thomas Kurian, he emphasized that this is, the Google's full stack infrastructure, the GPUs and proprietary TPUs. This optimizes the models that are used for performance quality and low latency, positioning Google as a super powerful large language model that powers all of these capabilities inside of the Gemini Enterprise tooling. So some of these major features is the Gemini Enterprise actually replaces what was originally called Agent Space, or at least a framework, which evolves right now into a full AI platform rather than just a simple workspace add-on. Users can interact with it, and this is the big part, interacts with company data, documents, and tools that are leveraged through the Gemini interface back into their Google workspaces. So it also includes pre-built AI agents for things like research, analytics, and workflow automation. Draw parallels when you look at M365 Copilot, that includes agents as well, researcher, analyst, and you could build your own agents through what they call the agent builder. So there's a lot of parallels between the two. What this does through the Google Enterprise, it actually integrates with the existing, what I'll call enterprise tools, things like Google Workspace, SAP, Salesforce, and other major business systems. Interesting enough, it actually also integrates with M365, aka the things that you create in terms of docs. There's, as I mentioned, this new data science agent. It's in preview, but it will have the ability to automatically ingest and analyze data, especially those that may exist within your Google Workspace. And it can help to identify patterns, generating insights, typical data scientist type stuff that you probably had to get specialized skills to be able to bring in. There's built-in security, governance, and compliance, obviously, built into the tool, including centralized permissions and audit tracking, which is important because now if you're doing things like data science or this analyst or doing the research, you don't want it just picking up any data. You want to have that actually locked down and be able to trace that. So those things are included as well. So the use cases are pretty obvious. I mean, you can do things like marketing teams can generate different ideas, visuals from this, create campaign content. Analysts can do automated reporting, identify trends and data, produce different report summaries with minimal manual effort. And again, that's the whole idea of using these agents. And operations teams, could do operational tasks across different applications, really leveraging AI to drive business process automation. So, strategically, this really, as I mentioned already, puts Google squarely aligned as a competitor to what Microsoft has with M365. We will mention some things that OpenAI is doing, but this, again, aligns very well to the direction that OpenAI is trying to put forth. And we'll get to that in a couple of minutes as we talk about their dev days that they just had. But that's another area in terms of strategic impact. So what this is really trying to do is bring all these different AI tools to make it accessible to the employees. So the way I take a step back and look at this is that if you're a Google shop already and you're leveraging the other Google tools, this makes total sense to leverage this package. And again, yes, it obviously comes at a cost and you have to weigh all those things out. But as we talk a lot on this podcast, AI is being able to drive a lot of efficiencies and productivity. So it will pay for itself many times over per user for that cost. Where it becomes a little bit more interesting, I guess, is if you're already a Microsoft shop that has, if you're quote unquote paid into the M365 world and you've created a lot of that information, which is stored then in the Microsoft Graph, does it make sense to go the Google route or the M365 Copilot? Obviously, and this is not me just saying this as a Microsoft employee, but it makes more sense to stay in that stickier environment because you're already having the tools and capabilities and governance there versus using an outside tool like the Google Enterprise. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the long run. But as we've said already over the last couple of episodes, Google is really going, I'm going to call it like breakneck speeds, 200 miles an hour, putting out different tools and capabilities faster than I think I've seen any organization over the last year do. And their models and tools are cut rate very good at this point. And we've seen that everything from, Gemini 2.5 Pro to their VO3 models. They're really good at this point, and they're only getting better. And now they've got an application wrapper that sits around everything.
It's a tough world out there, Jamie. M365 Copilot, Google, Gemini Enterprise, and then Anthropic and OpenAI. I think these four are really duking it out now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of duking it out, another thing around Google, it seems like everybody now has Operator, their version of Operator, computer use, whatever you want to call it. We've seen that from OpenAI. Microsoft has the computer use capabilities, in things like Foundry and also Copilot Studio, and not to be left behind, Google through Gemini 2.5 computer use has that now as well. So this is a specialized version of Gemini 2.5 Pro. It's designed for browser-based automation. Obviously, you use it through Chrome. It enables the AI agents to perform UI actions, such as clicking on buttons, filling out forms, scrolling, even dragging and dropping elements. So this is obviously optimized for web browsers, and it's done pretty well on performance benchmarks, such as like the mobile UI benchmark from Android world. So how does it actually work? It operates in an iterative, intelligent agent loop. So it looks at a screenshot, understands the context of that screen, and then decides based upon use of the Gemini 2.5 Pro what it should do next as after it looks at the interface and sees what's on it, aka should I do this click or should I type? Then it actually acts. So it executes against that quote unquote client UI side, and it repeats this over and over again. So it does it until a particular task is completed. And it supports 13 different predefined actions, things like navigation, typing, scrolling, keyboard shortcuts. So where we were a year ago when Operator first came out to where we are today is leaps and bounds. So we're now seeing, each of these foundational model players actually have the capability to do things like this. So the one thing that's interesting is the performance and benchmarks. So the OpenAI's computer using agent and Anthropic's Claude Sonnet and Web Voyager, all these different things. That's a benchmark, but the bottom line is this outperforms those things from Anthropic and OpenAI. And it's done that through a couple different benchmarks, whether it's a Web Voyager, Online Mind to Web, and or Android world in terms of those posted benchmarks. So there's obviously a lot of real world potential use cases for this, like repetitive automation flows, UI testing, personal productivity, all those come into play. So this is obviously not free, so it does come for a price. So it's in preview through the Google AI Studio as well as Vertex. So the pricing aligns pretty much with 2.5 Pro because that's actually what's being used. There's no free tier; it's only paid access only. Which brings me to a point. I do play around with different platforms. Yes, I'm a Microsoft employee as Shadab, but you do need to know other platforms. So I do have a Google subscription, or at least a free one that I'm using for a little while. This is not going to be the computer use agent, but I do want to at least show some capabilities around different tools. Let me just share my screen real quick for us. I'm going to jump around to a couple of things. Like I said, we haven't shown much of Google lately, but all the things I just mentioned. I'm in their. We talked about Opal before, so this is actually Opal. I'm using one of their published quote unquote experiments where this is a video marker. So this allows me to actually use natural language and then drag and drop different workflows. This is their video one. I'm not going to have time to go through all this. I want to jump to a couple of other pieces. Vertex AI, again, this is where I could pick up doing things like what we just talked about as far as the computer use, but I have all the other things where if I wanted to generate like images, videos, music, speech, do live things or chat. So again, through the Vertex AI Studio, could do that as well. Here's the AI Studio. So this is, I kind of equate this like Vertex is like, I'm going to draw some parallels like Azure AI Foundry, and then you have the Studio, which is more of a lightweight end user, kind of maybe equated to Copilot, somewhere in between. It's not exactly, but that's the way I'm thinking about it in my head. You could do more things. That's why I say it's not an exact match. You could go in and do chats and streams. But one of the things here, and this is why I say it kind of aligns with Copilot Studio, is the build scenario. So this allows me to build apps through natural language, and it could connect into different things. So I literally did this 10 minutes before we started this podcast today. Here's an example. Everyone should know, if you've been listening for a while, I'm a weather buff enthusiast, call me a crazy storm chaser, whatever. So I like to do a lot of my demos, at least things that I play around with, related to weather, because potentially I might use that in my real quote unquote use of weather tools. So literally 10 minutes before this episode went in, and I said, hey, build me an app that will help me forecast local weather in Delaware, Maryland area. That's where I live. Base it on next 3-day weather. Use some information from the National Weather Service in their office. So it came back and actually built this. Now I iterated a little bit over it. Like I said, this first prompt came back in 70 seconds. So in a little over a minute, it built the first version of the app. And then I iterated with it, and I told it to actually, add some additional things, like add a radar into the application. So this is real. It's actually, real as of real radar as of 2:40 this afternoon, which is what time it is. And it would see rain if there actually was rain around here right now. And then I iterated over this a little bit, and I told it, hey, do a drop down or add different cities into this. So you can see what it actually is pulling information. I still have to work with it because it's not cooperating with what I wanted to pull as far as data from the National Weather Service, but it's pretty darn close. And like I said, 10 minutes and I had an app. Now, here's the part that it's a little bit of a differentiation. I could share this app, and what it will do is actually publish it. So it publishes it to the AI Studio, which is their, again, Google's capabilities, and I copy it, I could share it out. It's literally a web app that runs. So it's running within their confines and tools. Obviously, you have to pay for this after a while. But again, I go back to what Google is actually doing in terms of advancing not only their underlying models, but then creating tools that wrap around that for either individuals or organizations, enterprise orgs, to build capabilities that you would want. I look at this as a great rapid prototyping concept, especially if you're just trying to show like a UI of what you eventually want and how this will actually work. So, bottom line, if you haven't seen this in a while, definitely go take a look at it. And like I said, Google is giving, I think, $300 for 2 months of using their GCP and their services in their AI set of tools. So give it a shot, give it a try.
It looks wonderful. I mean, unbelievable. Just in 10 minutes, Jamie.
Yeah, like I said, I was kind of blown away on how much and how quick it was able to create. So I'm not done yet with Google. Got one more little quick thing to hit upon. So Google also announced their A2P, not to be confused with A2A. This is their agent payment protocol. So it's a first of the kind effort from Google, developed with over 100 different payment and technology partners, things like American Express, Coinbase, Intuit, MasterCard, PayPal, ServiceNow, Salesforce, basically to establish how agents can securely enable financial transactions, which is super important because as the world starts to really build more agents, we want to ensure that, not only is it doing it in a way that we can connect into different apps and platforms, but it's doing it in a way that we can actually do real financial transactions. So this is, again, something it's great to see, a technology partner really taking the lead and working with those financial, institutions to create some protocols that, the community can adopt.
Cool. I think there's a protocol wars brewing. Because OpenAI also came up with the agentic commerce protocol just I think last week. We'll see which one actually catch on. All right, let's move to OpenAI, Jamie, and they also had their Dev Day. They generally love to actually coincide their announcements with Google.
Yeah.
That's what we have seen. So they had their Dev Day announcements, and here's a string of things, right, that they announced. Essentially, lots of new models, but they are not like big version leap, but essentially different flavors of the models. For example, they had a GPT-5 Pro, which went to GA, which is a premium advanced reasoning model for complex analytics and decision support. And it's like multi-step problem solving, right? So think of GPT-5 Pro as a higher end model that you may want to use if you have a very, maybe the Deloitte should have used that model, for example. Um, But it's now actually also in the GA. And then they also announced GPT-5 Chat Latest. Okay, latest is part of that name of the model. Basically, it's a conversational model, just like the very chat specific model, and it is optimized for basically safety, instruction following, and multimodal interactions. So it also has a lot of guardrails, so you can more safely expose that as a chat interface, right? You can use it as a model to interact with the public. And then they announced mini models of GPT Image 1, GPT Real Time, and GPT Audio. So all these three models, or the mini version of them, are now available and they are in GA. By the way, all these models are also available in Azure OpenAI as we call it SIM-ship, simultaneous shipping. So OpenAI models, whenever they announce, they're also available same day in Azure as well. So some of these mini models that I was talking about, they're actually up to 70% cheaper than their, the base model. So they could be pretty powerful in terms of, the speed and the cost particularly. So OpenAI has time and again said that voice is the future of interaction, and they will continue to develop these models. By the way, Sora 2 API is also going to be basically it's an advanced multimodal generative model designed for video and audio creation. It is not yet available in Azure, but it will be available soon in the Azure as well. So that is on the model side. Now let's talk about there is one feature particularly which went kind of viral, which was interacting with the apps in the Chat GPT. So they announced deep partnerships with Spotify, Zillow, Mattel, and like Canva, etc., who can be integrated within the ChatGPT. So when you are interacting with ChatGPT, and let me probably share that quick demo as well. And what you will see is you can actually in the ChatGPT interface just simply go to here. And you see here in this interface, this is my ChatGPT Plus subscription. Here, what I've done is basically asked Canva, okay, to be included as a source or as an integration app. Now, if I ask Canva, I have to add Canva. You can just simply say at the rate, and you can see Figma, Expedia, Coursera, Canva, Booking.com are already available. And then all I have to say is, Jamie, you and I, we actually use Canva for building some of the creative works here for the channel. And I asked it to, okay, create, let's say, some infograph options, how to change car oil. And it shows me some of the options here, right? So it has given me the option because now it has already interacted with Canva. For the first time, what it does is it actually asks you for the credentials. Essentially, it takes you to that page, apps page, and then you verify your credentials. And now you are integrated. You don't have to do it every time again. So that's a very convenient part of it. I don't need to go and separate a screen to actually use these apps. Once you have done that within the chat, it will show you different options generally, and you can see, for example, this one. This is the infograph um, that Canva has created, and now it's available as a link within the Chat GPT, and I can click on that link and then just simply go to that particular application, and there I can see that infograph within Canva as well. So I think it's a fairly powerful way of using apps, I would say, because I really like the fact that you don't need to switch a screen and all those things. Just simply call it from the Chat GPT, and then it's one time authentication, and then you can continue to use it. So I think it's a really, really easy way of doing it.
So the way I think about this, it's sort of like the tools of old that were in ChatGPT, but now it's leveraging. I think it's leveraging the latest communication protocols, aka MCP, to
Yes.
communicate with those services, and it does it in a more seamless way through the chat interface. Good way to
Correct.
summarize it.
Yes, absolutely. I
Okay.
think that's a good way to put it. Um, and they also actually launched something called ChatGPT Apps SDK, which let the developers build mini apps directly inside the ChatGPT. And these apps can use multimodal inputs and integrate the external APIs as well. So basically, if you see a ChatGPT, they're trying to build it into a hub, basically between the App Store and the AI workspace. So you don't need to go outside it, do everything there, and then it is opening it as a platform for all the other developers to use this ChatGPT Apps SDK, build the mini apps within the ChatGPT as a hub. Okay, so that's another, I think, exciting announcement. Let's see what happens after this. How many developers adopt it. Like, I think it is exciting, and I think a lot of developers will be actually willing to adapt it and then go into it. By the way, on that ChatGPT, as I talked about, that you can call the apps. There are other developers who have already lined up and they're developing. These are some of the other ones who have already committed, and they will be also available within the ChatGPT. And then, for example, you can search for, um, you know, hey, what's available? DoorDash, tell me what is the special available from my favorite restaurant, things like that. So you don't need to go outside and do everything inside.
Hmm. It becomes the next OS, and it becomes your interface into everything. If I had to think about it, right?
That is exactly the vision, Jamie, as you put it, what Sam Altman has put it. And they are basically saying OpenAI wants to be the platform, not just the model, not just the chat interface. It is a platform, it is the hub, and it is basically the next operating system. Everything happens within it. It's, I think, a good vision, grand vision. Let's see how exciting they keep it. They also released something called the Agent Kit. Jamie, this is I think the next version of what you say Agent SDK that they already had actually released earlier. Now this Agent Kit actually helps the developers create autonomous AI agents, which can plan and perform multi-step tasks. So, for example, ChatGPT can help you book the trips, analyze your data, or run a marketing campaign all on its own, and you can build the agents using this Agent Kit. Now, some of the exciting thing in the Agent Kit is, let's say, Agent Builder. It's like a visual canvas for creating and versioning multi-agentic workflows. And if you see here on the screen, this is how that looks like. It's a simple agent builder. It is paid. It is not available without a payment option integrated. But once you subscribe to it, you can actually create the agent, and you can see that in the flow here. You can build that multi-step flow, you can put the guardrails, and you can publish this as an agent. So I think that's pretty exciting. It's like something like Copilot Studio, Jamie, in the Microsoft world. That's what
Mhm.
I would say, which is like, it's basically low code, no code version of building the agents. And then,
Yeah, I was going to say it kind of draws some parallels to Opal from Google that I just showed a couple of minutes ago as well. So
exactly.
it's interesting how everything is kind of merging on delivery and or options within the platforms.
Absolutely. It is exactly like that. They have also something called connector registry, where basically it's kind of a central place where the admins can actually manage all the different connections between data and tools across OpenAI products. So some sort of an administrative console is available. And there's something called ChatKit, which is basically a toolkit for embedding customizable chat-based agent experience in the product. Because many times your agent would also require a chat-based interface, so you can use the chat kit to build that kind of chat-based agentic interface to expose to the users. They also have actually, they're providing basically two new features in the reinforcement fine tuning, which is in beta right now. It is designed to push agent performance even further. So you can actually fine tune these, so that your agent can actually be even more precise. You will have something called custom tool calls, where you can train the models to call the right tools at the right time for better reasoning. So you can train the models to actually do that, so your performance is better. There is also something, they have also actually new evals that they have also added to the agentic, you know, basically this capability where you have you can track, for example, grading. You can do a couple of different things as part of those evals on the agentic. Um, let's talk about the hardware. There is also this. They haven't announced any specific device, but they have confirmed that they're building a family of OpenAI devices, which are basically focused on human-centric AI. And this is part of that collaboration between OpenAI and Johnny Ive, the legendary Apple designer, former Apple designer. They also talked about the some of the partnership, the infrastructure and power moves. For example, OpenAI will deploy up to 6 gigawatt of AMD GPUs over time, and this basically they are starting with in late 2026 about 1 gigawatt of that already MI40 450 units. So it's interesting. OpenAI has partnership with, of course, Nvidia, Microsoft. They also have actually doing the partnership with Intel and AMD. Everyone, essentially, they are not leaving anything, I would say, not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to securing the supply, and cutting out all these like partnerships with pretty much everybody in the industry.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
going to say they're kind of like they're playing with everybody on the block. Is kind of how I think about it. And the thing you just mentioned about AMD, we're not financial traders here on this, but I believe AMD on that news shot up like 25% in one day, at least before the opening or something like that. So the moves that OpenAI is doing, because it really impacts what we as a society and what we as users of this technology, which then drives company behavior, which then drives bottom line results. I mean, that had a direct impact, at least this announcement with working with AMD. So, everything from new models to changing and influencing financial markets, they've done, all within a week.
Same thing happened with Oracle as well, Jamie. I don't know why do I keep missing these opportunities where I
Now,
don't get to make use of this 30% jump in one just a
we
few
got to
days.
create we got to create an agent that can predict financial moves before they happen.
Absolutely, I think somebody is making money for sure. But yeah, this is what you never know what partnership may work, what may not work. It's really a roller coaster ride. In fact, there have been some concerns also already raised. Jimmy, there was this week actually. Also, there was some analysts actually they came up with a chart which shows so much interconnection between all these different players: Microsoft, OpenAI, and Nvidia, and Intel, and AMD. Everybody is pumping into each other's, right, the money. They're investing back and forth, and it was called like a cyclical, that economy where, you know is this a making of a bubble? That's what people are questioning, right? Because they are just investing, like it's like a loop, or a
Yeah,
circle of economy. Well, time
yeah,
will see. um,
yeah. I
but
was going
that
to say, is it really generating anything? It's sort of like money is transforming, or sorry, money is trading hands, but obviously things are getting done, but I kind of call it's monopoly money going around in a circle to promote the next iteration. So
true. Well, I hope that it keeps, it is not really making of a bubble. It is a genuine. I mean, it seems like a working partnerships between the companies. I mean, of course, they need to invest into each other. It's called putting a skin in the game, essentially, right? I think that's what it is. Which basically raises, I would say, the probability of success, right? Where it's such a bilateral relationship that they all are invested in each other. So anyway, with that, I think we're probably done with everything that we've tried to do this week.
yeah, we covered a lot, and there's so much more that we even get to. I mean, if you looked at what's on the floor, quote unquote, as far as what we cut, there's a lot. So again, we try to give you the big news items and a little glimpse on how this is impacting or shaping the enterprises and the organizations that we either work with or work for. So again, hopefully everyone got some nuggets out of this week. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. This 50 minutes is definitely worth. You don't have to spend 5 hours searching for things. This is a
Yeah.
power packed episode.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone. Bye, Jimmy.